Morning.
Good morning.
The picture that has been on the monitor is the statue of Figure, the original name of the horse who became known as Justin Morgan after the name of his owner. It is at the University of Vermont Morgan Horse Farm in Weybridge, Vermont. It was commissioned in 1921 by the Morgan Horse Club. And the sculptor had the task of interviewing tons of people, researching to get the exact dimension and shape of the original Morgan horse for the installation of that sculpture. We'll talk more about the University of Vermont Morgan Horse Farm shortly. I'm going to read from an excerpt from the right-hand side of the bulletin this morning. These small, compact, well-muscled animals appear again and again in the sculptures and paintings of the past. Leonardo da Vinci, with his love of machines, was obsessed with the physical structure of this powerful but refined animal. Those words come from John Bulmer, the British documentarian who made a video called The Artist's Horse in praise of the Morgan. And this picture is Leonardo's horse. It is a sculpture commissioned in 1492. Leonardo did his typical, almost like engineering drawings for it, died before he was able to finish it, and his students finished it later. It was the largest equine statue in the world at the time, and this is the artist's horse that John Bulmer was talking about, with its upright neck and musculature. Beyond the artist's horse, the kind of horse that nobility wanted pulling their vehicles, and that the generals, the military of Europe were posed on in the statues all over Europe, I want to call your attention to the architecture of this animal. The neck is set on high and way back over a laid back shoulder. This is a horse that can tilt its way back toward its hind end and dig in. If you're hauling armaments into a battlefield, you want this shape of a horse. If you are taking a coach across country, if you're hauling freight, you want a horse that can sit back and dig in, and that is the shape, sometimes in Europe, known as the Baroque horse. The famous Lipizaners of the Spanish riding school are Baroque horses with that upright neck. What Bulmer refers to here, this horse differs substantially from the kind of horse we see in Europe today. And remember, he's writing this in the late 70s. These are drawings commissioned by the Morgan Horse magazine, where I work, again, more about that later, of the trotting horse versus the running horse. And it is the running horse that Bulmer is talking about that took over the equestrian world in Europe, because it is built low to the ground, it is built horizontal, and it has this ability to use its legs like a gondolier would use its pole and achieve great speed over land. So if you were going to be steeplechasing, running over jumps, if you were going to be racing, you wanted this horse. And if you were going to be fox hunting, this is the horse you want. And of course, those became the great recreations of European horsemen. Does everybody know Oscar Wilde's definition of fox hunting?
No.
The indefensible in pursuit of the inedible. These drawings were done for an article in the magazine on the shape of the riding horse versus the trotting horse. The question we're going to talk about this morning is, if that all diminished in Europe, how was this horse born in 1789 in West Springfield, Massachusetts? This is a likeness of the Justin Morgan horse. There are many woodcuts from the era depicting a horse that looked very much like this, and you already see the vertical shape. This is that kind of horse that can dig in and do a day's work. And by the way, in addition to the physical shape is the temperament, the willingness, the ability to participate in the activities of its human companions. And something we know today, you all know that Secretariat finished, I think it was the Belmont Stakes, 31 lengths ahead of all the other horses, and everybody was like, how could that happen? Well, when he was autopsied after his death, it was discovered his heart was 5 times larger than that of a normal horse. This is called today the big heart gene, and we are convinced Justin Morgan possessed it because throughout history, cavalry, stagecoach work, settling the ranches in the West, this horse could perform all day without anyone having to go get a fresh horse to finish their work, and that is part of the legacy of this animal. Today, all Morgans descend from this single horse. Most breeds are a blend, an intentional blend of horses. One horse created a breed, and there is lots of speculation about where he came from. He must have been sired by a Friesian because he looks like a Friesian. No, there's the Dutch horse. Oh, the Canadian horse. Today we have lots of scholarship about what actually happened. I'm going to show you, this is an article by the amazing historian Brenda Tippin. For the 17 years I've been editor of this magazine, she has an article in almost every issue. And her articles will typically be 7,500 to 10,000 words. We still publish long-form journalism. And so many of the disputes about the origin of the horse, how Justin Morgan, the hymn composer and choir master, came to own this horse. The lore is that the horse, he got the horse in settlement of a debt, went all the way from Randolph Center, Vermont to West Springfield, Massachusetts, to pony the horseback riding another horse in the era 1790, in the era before there were highways and bridges. Just an amazing piece of Americana. And today, this painting by Jean Mellon Herrick, who was a horse breeder, a horse trainer, and an artist. In fact, her art will be on the cover of our October issue in a retrospective. This is the standard of perfection according to the American Morgan Horse Association, my employers. Again, the horse with a very vertical shape of neck, not a running horse, but a trotting horse. Dave has gently nudged me since winter and spring if I had something to share in church, and Father's Day, I brought in pictures of my father, as we were suggested that we do, and I ended up talking about the equine photographer. Y'all were very, very kind in your reaction, and I said, well, why don't I talk in church about the Morgan horse, which I love and am familiar with, but I can link it to American history, which all of us are familiar with. So the topic is inexhaustible. I have been editing 2 different publications for 24 years now, and I am just scratching the surface on assigning and getting articles on Morgan history, genealogy, Morgan people, and the horse. But I thought I would share snapshots, because I can't do the exhaustive history. This horse has an ironic name. His name is Jeff Davis. Gets better. He was the favorite horse of Ulysses S. Grant. He was a spoil of war, captured by the Union from the Southern troops. And when Ulysses Grant found out his breeder was Jefferson Davis' brother, he named the horse Jeff Davis. And the horse was with him throughout the rest of the horse's life. This is from an article on some of the horses, carloads of Morgan horses left New England to be cavalry mounts in the Civil War. This is one of them, Rienzi. This is a very famous painting of Rienzi during Sheridan's ride, where he galloped from D.C. to Winchester, Virginia to rally the troops and he rode this horse into battle after riding him all the way from DC. Again, this could go on, but I thought I'd bring it a little closer to home. The horse in this picture is Charlemagne. The rider is Joshua Chamberlain, the Civil War Brigadier General and later governor of Maine. He rode Charlemagne into Appomattox for the surrender of the Southern troops. He kept the horse with him all of his life, all the horse's life, and the horse is buried on Crow Island near Brunswick. So some nature of the early use of the horse, particularly in the Civil War, but throughout military battles, Comanche is a Morgan horse, a part Morgan horse, is the only survivor of Little Bighorn, Custer's last stand. He left the battlefield with 7 bullets in him. He was recovered and retired in honor, never to be ridden again, but often brought out for military parades and other events. I'm going to flash forward to the 1950s and 60s. This is a picture. The man here is Robert Lippitt Knight. He is the founder of the Fruit of the Loom textile mills. And he had a herd of Morgan horses, still called Lippitt Morgans today. They're their own family. And they had the highest concentration of old Morgan blood, the most crosses to the original Justin Morgan horse of any other animals. And there was a great romance around this. His breeding farm was in the Woodstock, Vermont area. He's pictured here. This is Governor Johnson of Vermont and his wife. And celebrities and notable people were often associated with the horses of Robert Lippitt Knight, some of them owning them and just showing up at events that took place at Robert Lippitt Knight's Green Mountain Stock Farm in Vermont. This is the actor Jimmy Cagney at an event at the Green Mountain Stock Farm. I'm going to tell you a little story that I kind of enjoy telling. This picture is of Denny Emerson. He's a unique person in the world of equestrian sports. He's the only human being to have an Olympic gold medal and to have finished the grueling Tevis Cup endurance ride 100 miles through the deserts and mountains of California. You enter Tevis not to win it, you enter it to finish it. And he's a finisher. You get a belt buckle, and he's got one. He is also he's been called by the Chronicle of the Horse, which is a weekly publication of the sport horse world, as the conscience of our sport. He is the most followed horseman on Facebook with over 100,000 followers for his commentary. And he has a column in every issue of the Morgan Horse magazine. It is our most frequently read column. However, this is Denny. He's in his 80s now. This is Denny as a teenager when Robert Lippitt Knight tapped him to ride, a teenager, to ride his horses in the endurance rides in Vermont at the Green Mountain Horse Association. And Denny loves to tell the story about bringing a horse in after the whole long ride, and he was working on him, pulling him down in the stall, rubbing liniment on his legs, and he could tell over the stall door that there was somebody standing there watching him because there was a shadow. And teenager, Denny, looked up, and this is the man looking over the door. This is Robert Frost, who was a frequented Morgan events, especially at Mr. Lippitt Knight's, and actually wrote a poem called The Morgan Horse. I've shared those as snapshots of the Morgan in history. As I said earlier, this could go on and on. We've never exhausted the topic in these magazines that I have worked on. And again, in order to continue providing snapshots, I wanted to share 2 favorite articles that have to do with the history of the Morgan breed. Okay, there's so many of them. And this is the first one I'm going to share. Oops, wrong picture. This one may surprise you a little bit. It certainly surprised me. In 2014, the historian Gail Purley contacted me and said she had 5 completed articles, a series of articles. And by the way, if you ever contact an editor and say you've got 5 articles and they're all done, sold. But the topic was the Morgans of the Indian agricultural schools. And I thought at first, is this politically sensitive? And then I thought, it's pretty obscure. Will readers be interested in it? And as the series went on, I should tell you first, what happened was during the New Deal of FDR in the 30s and 40s, there was something called the Horse Improvement Act, and Morgan horses were sent to these Indian agricultural schools in Oklahoma, the Pacific Northwest, Utah, the Dakotas, and so on, for a few purposes. One, to improve the livestock on those breeding operations. Two, to help with agriculture. And three, to offer the Indian reservations a cash crop, selling some of these horses to the ranches of the West. The biggest breeders in history of Morgan horses were Selman in Texas and Rowland Hill in California, vast ranches. They bred Morgans to use there. And these schools helped provide horses to those places. But as you go through, I'm just going to go through, this is the final one in this series, you see using horses. Here you're seeing show horses. They are shown for recreation for one thing, but to evaluate stock, what stock was correct, capable, athletic. And then you see breeding horses. And when I came to the end of this series, having read it, edited it, published it over 5 issues, I realized this, that the rest of the world was mechanizing. Between the two wars, farmers had tractors, you hauled freight on trucks. And the Indian agricultural schools were breeding seed stock that prominent Morgan breeders could go back and bring back mares, maybe of their family's breeding, to continue their own breeding operations. This is Beamington, the first Morgan World Champion park harness horse. A park horse is a high stepping horse. Without the Indian agricultural schools, our breed would not have had Beamington. This picture means a lot to me. This is Senator Barr. He was the foundation sire for the mighty Maryhill breeding program. The most prominent stallion today in our breed is a horse named Maryhill After Hours. Again, this is a horse we would not have had without his mother, Dam, coming from the Indian agricultural schools. And I'd like you to, notice the structure we talked about. This is the desirable structure in a Morgan horse that we still breed today for function. I'm going to show you one. There's a few things in this that are personal for me. This is Morgan Quest Native Son. From our front cover, World Champion reining horse. His sire line goes directly through generations of the agricultural schools. When it was time to put him on the cover, his breeder, who had become friends advertising and talking on the phone, actually died. And I picked up my phone one day, and this older woman's voice was like, "Tanya's dead." And this was her horse. And her mother, Shirley, became like my third grandmother. The phone would ring from Kansas, and we would just talk on and on, which is one of the pleasures of the things I get to do. Morgan Quest Native Son, unfortunately, only had 5 offspring before they stopped breeding due to death in the family. And 4 of the 5 are world champion reiners like him. We have his sire line because of the agricultural schools. I'm going to do one more article amongst my favorites. Sorry, I need my glasses. This one's also personal. This is, the man here is Billy Parker, one of the greatest showmen and trainers of Morgan show horses in history. This woman, Edna Avery, bred Billy's greatest horse, Benfield's Ace, the horse he was so famous for. And in 1984, I was editor of a magazine known as Show Horse. Believe it or not, it was published out of Bangor. That was my ticket to get from Canada to here. And this is Billy on a son of Benfield's Ace named Houdini at his retirement ceremony. And in 1984, we had scheduled what should have been a promotional interview with Billy. He was moving from his family's farm in New York to set up a separate business in Connecticut near Hartford. And we drove down, but what happened in the intervening weeks before the interview was scheduled was Billy's father, Joe Parker, passed away. And we came away from that with an interview. We didn't meet a horse trainer, we met Preacher Bill. And he was articulate and passionate about his father's role in breaking the color barrier in equestrian sports. And to the best of my knowledge at the time, his father, Joe Parker, would have been the first man to show a show horse in the mainstream horse show ring. There were lots of men of color working on farms in the South and working with horses in the circus and so on. But Joe Parker was the first to show horses, and we walked away that day with the interview about it from his son, Billy. Billy died in December, and I was like, what can I do in the magazine to honor him? And so I researched this article. This is an article I authored. The picture here, this is Joe Parker when they were still living in the South, his sons, and these are the boys when they all became professional horsemen showing in the Morgan Ring. What I'm particularly touched by, what's so meaningful to me is they found their place in our breed, in the Morgan breed. And particularly, they started winning at Northampton, which I just came back from last week. There were 700 horses competing there. And Joe Parker started winning championships there, being just about unbeatable in 1964. And so I was able to research the history of men of color in the Morgan Show Ring using the vast archives of the American Morgan Horse Association. This is Joe, Billy's father. But I discovered this. This man, Ed Williams, was winning at Northampton a decade before Joe Parker. So I was able, through our archives, to unearth pictures, some of that history. I interviewed Sue Annis. She's in her 90s, and she shared a lot of memories of Ed Williams and how much her family adored him. So the features, this is Sullivan Davis, such a great coach that his riders were unbeatable at the old Madison Square Gardens shows in New York. And this is Tom Butler. He was put on a train car full of horses. His job was to take care of the horses leaving Tennessee. The horses were delivered in Ohio, and Tom Butler never went home. He became not only a titled horseman, but there are horsemen today that he mentored as well. So there's so much history we could have discussed, but the diversity of the Indian agricultural schools and the fact that we are privileged to have horses from the descended today, and the fact that these men of color, we broke that barrier in the Morgan breed. Billy's final show ring appearance, he was inducted into the Connecticut Morgan Hall of Fame, and they honored me with being able to present the jacket. One more thing, two more things. I skipped the whole section. I'll get to it in a minute. I can do it really quickly at the end. I quoted in the program John Bulmer. This is John Bulmer. No, that's not John Bulmer. I don't have my glasses on. I will get to the picture as well. This is John Bulmer, the British documentarian, with Terrial Maestro, one of the horses that he and his wife imported from America because they discovered the Argus breed in America, the Morgan horse, in the 1970s. His wife was much more involved with this activity than he was. This is his wife, Angela Connor Bulmer. She is a noted sculptress in Europe. Her mobiles, she calls them, are all over Europe, and they are large installations that move by water and wind. Yes, she is sculpting the official bust of Queen Elizabeth here. They imported, these are horses they imported in the 70s. She is riding in a village in England with Bob Brooks. Bob Brooks was a breeder, but he also wrote, again, almost single-handedly, our judging standards. And we still use his judging standards today to evaluate horses in the ring. This is a picture at their farm in England, Monington Court. It is one of those great old British estates with gorgeous old buildings and gardens, and Angela's sculpture is all over the farm by reflecting ponds and so on. And one more photo. This is taken at Monington. Monington on Wye. And what you see here, this is the former president of the American Morgan Horse Association. This is Erica Ulau. She's our registrar. She's been with the organization for, I think, going on 40 years. This is a noted world champion trainer. This is Angela here. And every Easter, they have a clinic at Monington that we cover at the Breed course, and trainers from America go there to teach. And this is the June-July issue of the magazine this year. It features John and Angela on the front cover, driving a pair of Morgans. You see that they're saluting. They are saluting the royal box or enclave or whatever. And we were able to honor them on their 50th anniversary with the cover of the magazine. I don't want to belabor this, but I'm going to go back and do the thing I left out just really quickly. You don't have a pure breed of anything, any livestock dogs, today without a registry. The American Morgan Horse Association's registry is all digitized. When horses are bred, mare and stallion are bred, there are reports that mating took place. They are submitted to the registry. Then when you go to register the foal a year later, gestation period is 11 months. You pull hair samples for DNA confirmation of parentage. We can check for any inherited illnesses or diseases and for coat color. Give me 1 second here. But you don't just have a registry. The oldest breed of horses is said to be the Arabian horse, and the Bedouins kept oral history. They knew the mare was from this family and the stallion was from that family, and that was called a purebred breed at one time. The Morgan breed has a registry today because of this man, Colonel Joseph Battelle. He was a wealthy, his family was wealthy, philanthropist from Middlebury, Vermont. For instance, this is Battelle Chapel at Yale University, which he commissioned and built and donated to Yale. This may be more familiar to you. This is the Bread Loaf Inn, which he built and created a writer's retreat, still there today. But what I want to talk about is he bred Morgan horses. And this is his barn at Weybridge, Vermont. And he started a herd of horses. Part of his purpose was to breed animals a bit larger, a bit faster for modern utility. And this is the barn where the horses, where he had his horses. When he died, the barn became, and the herd and the thousands of acres became the property of the United States Department of Agriculture. We still talk about, well, I'm going to breed my show horse, but I'm going to keep some old government blood in there because it offered soundness, size, scope, that kind of thing. And the government horses would go to remount stations where horses were supplied to forest rangers and military use and to improve agriculture out west. When the government stopped breeding Morgan horses, again due to mechanization, the barn and the herd was given to the University of Vermont. Today it is the University of Vermont Morgan Breeding Farm. We still have UVM horses, and the statue I showed you at the front is right here at that barn. But what I really wanted to tell you is Battelle single-handedly, one man, gave us the Morgan Horse Register. Over 9 years, it is said he sent out more than 100,000 pieces of correspondence. He hated the automobile, used his newspapers to campaign against it, the noise and noisy vehicles, and he traveled across the nation by train and then taking horse and carriage to confirm stories that had come back to him in letter, to inspect stock, and he documented the whole genealogy from the original Justin Morgan horse to horses being bred today, and he put it all in volume 1 of the Morgan Horse Register, published in 1894. He put $150,000 of his own money into that in the late 19th century. Volume 2, the slimmer one there, by the way, the first one is 1,100 pages. The second one, published a decade later, is 600 pages, and I think there's something, I have the entire volumes because I use them for research. I think there's about 20 volumes before we started digitizing all the records, but we digitized everything in Battelle's books. And when I say we, I'm talking about the American Morgan Horse Association. I meant to talk about that earlier. It's so important to our breed to have all of this information. I'm going to close up now. You can maybe tell from the things I've shared that a horse of old breeding, an old type, new type, horses used for show ring today versus horses used for gardening and work however many decades ago. We're a small community that can argue a lot. My horse is more pure, more lineage, yours is too modern, that kind of thing. Over all of the discussions and the history and the genealogy, this is my personal opinion, the defining characteristic of the Morgan horse, from then till now, the indelible stamp of Justin Morgan, is the willingness to participate in the activities of their human companions, the ridiculous intelligence of the horse. When I was still training horses, I always said to people, don't teach them something wrong, because they'll never forget it. And to me, this is the defining characteristic of this beautiful breed of animals, America's oldest equine breed, dating from 1789. I do have some final words, and I wrote them down so I get them fairly right. In preparing to speak today, it occurred to me that Friday, August 8th, was my 17th anniversary as editor of the Morgan Horse magazine. It is the official journal of America's original native horse in continuous publication for 84 years come October of this year. There is a saying, I didn't make it up, that if you do something you love all your life, you've never worked a day. I am that person, and I'm so fortunate to have spent my first part of my career training and showing Morgan horses. And today I get to travel the horse world amongst animals and colleagues that I absolutely adore. Anyway, that's very quick, believe it or not, introduction to the Morgan breed, its role in American history. Any questions? Actually done before 11 o'clock, so we have time for questions.
What is the average age of a Morgan horse? How long do they live?
I ran into a couple. So in the late 80s, I had a riding student from Presque Isle when I was training horses. I ran into her father since I moved home a few years ago, and I said, "What are you doing this morning?" He said, "I'm feeding that horse you bought my daughter back in the 80s. Morgan horses are fairly long-lived. They have the big heart gene. They get along on minimal rations, which is why they were so useful in cavalry work. And an average age of a horse is early 20s. We have lots of Morgans living into their 30s as well.
Now, do you know how many living registered Morgans there are?
Around 80,000 out of just under 300,000 over history. There were great lapses after recessions during mechanizations where we didn't, there was one year that the AMHA registered only 78 horses. Today, our breed registers around 2,800 to 3,000 newborn foals a year. It's double what the American saddlebred breed is registering, and just a fraction of what the American quarter horse, which is the world's most populous breed. So we add about 20, we add fewer than 3,000 horses to the gene pool every year, which I think is a very responsible number, given everything that's changing with land values and crops and so on.
What is a reining horse? That's a phrase I hadn't heard before.
So horses compete in all of the things that they were used for traditionally, carriage driving, for instance. A reining horse has all the skills that would be necessary for working cattle. They can spin a circle like that. They can stop in a heartbeat. And of course, that has been brought into competition, and they have reining competitions with patterns. Horses do sliding stops, and literally, after they've stopped, you can see the figure 11 in the ground from just sinking in that powerful hind end we talked about. Yes?
You mentioned standards of perfection. Do you know what the range is of shoulder height? What's acceptable?
Shoulder height.
Yeah,
The
horse.
height of a horse.
Right.
Uh,
On this breed.
Yes. The Morgan horse was a smaller horse originally. It has been bred and adapted to be, you know, if you've got two sons who are 6 feet tall and they each want a horse, you need something that's taller than that. The average size of a Morgan today is from about 14 3 hands, a hand is 4 inches, to 15 2 or so. It's not a huge breed of horses. Some of the Olympic horses, the warm bloods of Europe, bred only for the specialty of Olympic sports, can be 16 and 17 hands. Very intimidating.
One other question. You lost me on the timeline.
Okay.
You showed that statue of circa 1500 Europe. How did we get from that point, which the breed existed, maybe not called a Morgan yet?
No.
How did we get from there to Vermont?
That is the
Genetically.
question. That is the question. We have lots of scholarship on it and so on. I didn't mean to suggest that Leonardo's horse was a Morgan or even a relative. It was a type
Okay,
of horse, the
okay.
so-called Baroque type with the high set neck that changed.
Okay.
But the question remains, how did this upright horse get to America? Lots of speculation about its parentage.
Mhm.
Today we know it was sired by a horse named True Britain, who was a thoroughbred. A thoroughbred today are the racing horses, but they look very different back then. We don't know much about the dam. There's speculation about that. I will go back to my point. The horse is a mutant. He is
Right.
different from and better than
Right.
everything that preceded him, and he had this amazing ability to stamp his offspring with temperament and conformation. That stamp exists today. So if I suggested that we got the horse from York to this horse, of course horses came from York to America. But that's what we know about the parentage. And I didn't mean to skip through 400 years. Yes.
Do you have any pictures of you? We need to celebrate you, Tim.
I don't think there's any. They're all on discs. But I had the really great fortune throughout my career of riding some really nice horses and competing with them. I'm sorry I don't have any on my computer
I
today.
think you have some on Facebook that I've seen, but yeah.
I do. Yeah. Yes?
Can you share the story about your horse? I think his name was Igor?
Yes.
Would you share that story? That cracks me up.
Igor, I imagine. I was transitioning between advertising in the horse world and going back into training horses, and I kept an advertising client. I showed you the picture of the world-class trainer who was in York. That's Dwayne Knowles. His partner is Mike Gobin. In my humble opinion, Mike is just one of the most gifted horsemen in history. And so I was doing their advertising for them, and I got this list of horses for sale. When I do an ad for a horse show program for some of these horses for sale. And there was a baby, a 90-day-old foal, that was sired by the Noble Flair bloodline. Again, a lot of stuff to get into. Out of the Serenity Masterpiece mare. This had never been done before, and these are the two leading strains of the high-stepping horses in the Morgan breed. And so before the ad appeared, I said, Mike, I'd like to buy that horse. And they got me a price, and I said, that's a lot of money, and I'll need some time to get the money together with a partnership, which I did. And Mike said, well, that's great. While you're getting the money together, you can come down to South Carolina and see him. And I said, Mike, they had sent me a picture. It's still on my desk today. And I said, Mike, I'm not going to come see him in South Carolina in July. He'll be covered in flies. He'll be a mess. It'll be hot. I won't want him, and I really want this horse. So we bought him sight unseen from that single picture. It was pricey. And a few months later, the truck pulled in the yard, and he came off the trailer. And I was like, oh my gosh, what have I done? He was jug-headed and low-headed, tired all the time, and so we had a public barn, lots of students, and we sent him to live at a neighbor's farm, and when he came off the trailer, we gave him the name Igor. you know, Frankenstein's monster kind of thing. And, he was over at Ron and, so the students didn't walk through the barn and know we paid money for this. And he came back to the barn as a 2-year-old, and in the winter you body clip horses. He grew a great coat. You body clip them so they'll cool off faster, not sweat as much when you're working them in the winter. And a groom was body clipping him as a 2-year-old down in his stall. He came running and said, "Stephen, you've got to come see this." And a swan. There was a swan there. He was gorgeous and incredible. He was a horse of my lifetime. And we left the name Igor on him because it was a wonderful, ironic name that this beautiful swan of a horse emerged from that. I did call Mike back and I was like, "Mike, this horse you sold me is kind of ugly." And he's a great horse trainer with a great sense of humor, and his response is, "Work him with your eyes closed." but we didn't have to. He was magnificent, and I showed him through his 4-year-old year, which is junior competition. He was undefeated, including 2 world championships. It's the nature of being a horse trainer. We had to sell him, and we paid off the barn mortgage with that horse. So it was a great moment in my life. Thank you for asking, buddy. Thank you, everybody.
I wish you could have brought one in live.
We want to thank everybody for tuning in today. If you'd like to show your support, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel if you're not already subscribed, and help us out by sharing this message by clicking the share button. If you'd like to make a monetary donation to you, Church Holton, there is a link to our online donations in the video description down below. And again, thank you so much and have a blessed day.